As I was contemplating what to talk about this week, as we're talking about transformation, that song began to resonate in my mind. And it was basically that first line. There's a new earth on the horizon that's made of light, not of stone. And I hold that vision, and I believe that you hold that vision with me. That is where we are going. That is where we are evolving to. I know it may seem things that on the world out there may seem contrary to that, but I believe, I have to believe, I choose to believe that it's the beginning of something new. Because the things that are now occurring really do have to die away. It's the old story of death and resurrection. It's transformation. And so it looks like things are falling apart. Can we hold the hope and the vision that there's a new earth on the horizon? That there's a new humanity on the horizon? And that is really what transformation is about. But that transformation has to occur within us first. That we get to be committed to the process of transformation. And that is part of our mission statement at Unity Church of the Hills. So I'm going to invite you to say the mission statement with me. We put God first, celebrate life, live unity principles, and empower each other to transform our lives. Now, transformation is not a small thing. When we say that we are committed to transformation, that is a big calling. Do you agree with me? I think sometimes we use that word transform and transformation too lightly. Because transformation takes conscious attention and effort and willingness and desire to truly transform from who we have said we are, who we have believed we are, into who we truly are, right? So when we say that, we are calling ourselves up to a very high consciousness, what we in Unity call the Christ consciousness, who we truly are created to be in our essence. And we are also, as I have contemplated this week for me, calling ourselves out. And what I mean by that is if we are truly committed to transformation, if we are truly committed to all of the statements in our mission statement, it calls us out. It calls me out. And what I mean by that is calling myself out to, are you really living that? Are you really putting God first? Are you really celebrating life? Are you really living the unity principle, and are you really committed to transformation, or are you just giving lip service to it? I'm asking myself that, and I invite you to ask yourself that. Because it does call us out to new behavior, not just new consciousness, but how are we acting? What are we saying? What are we doing? How are we stepping up? Right? So transformation is not a small thing. Many of you are familiar, I know, with Reverend Robert Brummett. He's been here before, and was a teacher for many years at Unity Institute and Seminary. And he's written many books, and he wrote this book called Living Originally. If you're not familiar with the book, please get it. He talks a great deal about transformation in the book, and I want to share with you a little bit of what he says. And this is in the first chapter about transformation, which may be called the ever-present origin, the ground of being, true nature, higher power, Christ within, or a variety of other names. No promises, we can sense that it beckons us to a new life. We sense a new reality latent in our core, at our core. The call to new life is the call to a new form of humanity, one that is no longer motivated by self-interest, self-centered interests. It is to go beyond ourself as we are now, because we intuitively know we are truly more than we have previously experienced ourselves to be. That inner life, by whatever name or nature you call it, as I said earlier, we call it the Christ within in unity, that Christ itself, the true self, that is always, I believe, urging us, inspiring us, moving us to the recognition of itself, to the awareness of itself, to the conscious livingness of itself. And we are all endowed with that potential. But as I said earlier, it takes our intention and attention to truly practice that and allow that to be born in us and through us. And sometimes, I would say from my experience, sometimes it's not pleasant. Sometimes it is not like, oh, well, I have awakened to my Christ nature and everything is going to be blissful and beautiful and roses and rainbows and unicorns. But it's really not that. I mean, even look at the life of Jesus, who recognized and lived, we believe, his Christed nature. He awakened to that. He lived that. Was his life a bed of roses after that? I'm not saying you're going to be crucified, but in a sense, our egoic self has to die away. And I know it can be sometimes, so I want us to, if you're willing, to say this affirmation together. I think it's up there somewhere. Is it? Not yet. Well, what do we say? We're going to make it personal. I empower And so I know it may be overused, but the best example, the best metaphor I could come up with for that sort of transformation is the caterpillar to the butterfly. And it is an amazing transformation, metamorphosis that occurs when a caterpillar becomes this winged creature. And what we know, or what I've read and what I've been watching videos about caterpillars this week, the caterpillar comes out of this little bitty egg, and it emerges from this, what has already occurred is this transformation in the egg, and the caterpillar is born out of that, comes out of that, and just begins to eat. There's something within it. There's some intelligence within it. There is God within it, right? God, life, that urging to become, urging to grow, urging to evolve. That's in all of us. But we can see it so beautifully in this caterpillar. The caterpillar begins to eat. It just starts eating, taking in what nourishes it, what's going to support it in this evolutionary transformation process. And it eats until it recognizes, oh, it's time to stop eating. Now it's time to attach to a twig somehow and begin to spin this chrysalis. It begins to spin this chrysalis around itself. And within this chrysalis, what I've learned is that what was the caterpillar really dies away. It dissolves. It becomes like goo, this gooey substance. So the cells that were the caterpillar began to die away, to fall away, but there are what are called imaginal cells, right, that then begin to form, that have the encoding, the DNA the encoding of what is to become a butterfly. And so within there, that dissolving happens, it just falls away, and then the butterfly begins to form. And what was so amazing is that it's a totally different creature. Totally different. It has a new brain, it has a new heart, it has a new digestive system, so that it can no longer eat plants, but begin to eat nectar. It grows new eyes, it has antenna, it has all of these. It's different. It's totally different creature. And when it begins to recognize it's time to break out of the chrysalis, it begins to pump its wings, right? So the wings can get stronger. It can pump the fluid into the wings so that the wings become stronger and it can break free from the chrysalis. And then finally, this beautiful creature is born. Now, how does that relate to you and me? What I know, what I believe, is really I love this image. I heard about it not really too long ago. It's when the ovum and the sperm connect, there's a flash of light that happens. Have you heard that? There's this flash of light that happens in that moment. And that flash of light, I believe, is that reminder, that recognition that we are born and endowed with all of that light that we think about as this divine life, God, whatever source. You and I are encoded with the DNA of the Christ, the higher self, the God self, whatever you want to call it. Again, I like the word the Christed self. That's our potential. That's your potential, that's my potential. But as we are born out of that, when you think about it, that transformation that happens within the womb of the mother is just, how does that even happen? How does this little thing become this fetus and then this infant? It has to be a higher intelligence, creativity. That you and I can never really, well, maybe some people say you can do that now, but anyway. But all of that happens, and then we're born into, like that caterpillar comes out and it begins to eat. Well, you and I, and I'll speak for myself, I'm just going to own it. From my experience, we come out of this thing, and instead of eating all of that stuff that's going to support us, all of that stuff that's going to feed us, all of that stuff that's going to help our evolution, what do we get fed? A bunch of crap. Both physically and emotionally and mentally. At least that was my experience. So we begin to take in, assimilate all of these ideas from our culture, from our religion, from our ethnicity, from our school, from our peers, all of these ideas about ourselves that we begin to assimilate and take on. So rather than just eating from the spiritual food and knowing and listening to that drive within us, we begin to take in all of this stuff. Now, it's not our fault. It's just what happens. For me, I grew up in a culture in the deep South in Georgia that was very racist, that was very Baptist, that was very much about men are men and women are women. Very much about, for men, the hunting culture, the drinking culture. And I did not fit into any of that. I'll tell you, none of it. So I was made to believe that there was something wrong with me, right? So I took all of that in from my culture, from my family, from all of the things that I heard. And so I would own it for me, and I'm guessing something similar happened with you. I think what Don Miguel Ruiz talks about in the Four Agreements is that we become domesticated. We become domesticated. We become conformed to the world around us. And so we can either choose at some point to begin that process of letting go of that, or we can stay stuck in that. Richard Rohr, the great teacher, author, orator, often says that sometimes it takes great suffering or great love to move us beyond our egoic self, to begin to explore our true self. And so sometimes I think we may create this chrysalis around us that may be a protective chrysalis. We may just want to, as Brummett talks about in the book, we may want to just start doing self-improvement. Nothing wrong with it. Let me say this. Self-improvement. How can I feel better about myself? How can I be in this place of, it's like he calls that translational teaching. Translational processes. But for me, that was really what led me into more of the transformational processes. Because some of that stuff that we take on has to be let go. And sometimes it's not just automatic, is it? Therapy, years of therapy, energy work, all of those things can help us to release that. Practices. Because what I know is that those imaginal cells of the Christed beingness that are encoded within all of us are active. Always active, always there. And what I learned about this process that's going on within the chrysalis is that the cells of the caterpillar begin to recognize that these imaginal cells are not like their cells, and they begin to attack it. That's what happens sometimes with our egoic structure, isn't it? That our egoic structure does not want to let go. Our egoic structure wants to strengthen itself. Our egoic structure, whether that's an individual, whether that's a culture, whether that's a country, whether that's a society, whatever that is, our egoic structure wants to hang on to the power, to itself. And so anything that is a question to that, anything that is unlike itself, it really wants to attack. Anything that's unlike itself, it wants to attack. But if those imaginal cells are so strong and vital and alive and centered and knowing that, no, this is who I am, this is what I am, and I'm going to transform, then those imaginal cells begin to take over and something new is born. Within us, within our culture, a new earth, a new world. Revelation, behold, I saw a new heaven and a new earth. The former things have passed away. That new heaven is your consciousness. That new heaven is my consciousness. That new heaven is our consciousness. And the new heaven must occur so that we can bring it into manifestation in the earth. What I love is that with all of the things, I don't agree with everything that Apostle Paul wrote, obviously, but I like that he said, do not be conformed to the world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. And as I thought about this week, I thought, how I was listening to that and hearing that, and what came to me was, do not be conned by the world into believing that that is who you are. Don't be conned by the world. Don't be hypnotized by the world into believing that's who you are. Instead, renew your mind. Go back to the original mind, as Brummett talks about in his book. Because it really is in that, in our awareness of that we are able then to burst forth. Now, what I would say about that is, as we begin to become that, or to transform into that, the world is going to give us lots of opportunities to strengthen our wings. Right? The world is going to give us lots of opportunity to push against our comfort zones. Have you noticed? But our opportunity is to continue to strengthen that for ourselves. Because that chrysalis can become a comfort zone for us. We may want to say, oh, this feels so good, I'll just stay in here. Yeah, I'll just stay in here. And many people do. That's not a judgment, that's an observation. Many people do. But you're not one of those, or you wouldn't be here today. You agree? I believe you're here today because you are ready and willing to transform, to go beyond this egoic structure. And I'm not saying that you haven't already done a lot of that work. Again, if you hadn't, you probably wouldn't be here. But it's an ongoing process for us. And unlike the caterpillar becoming the butterfly, it's not really a one and done. I wish it was. It hasn't been for me, anyway. I think it's a process of letting go of certain things, letting go of an idea about myself that I might have taken on, part of that egoic structure, questioning that, paying more attention to those imaginal selves, that the truth of who I am, practicing that a little bit, stretching my wings a little bit, hopefully flying above some of that stuff and sharing that with the world. And then something else comes along, and I recognize, oh, well, again, as I said at the beginning, I'm being called up and I'm being called out. Where am I not doing that? Where am I retreating into my comfort zone? And where am I hiding, in that comfort zone? And so those are the questions that I'm really inviting us to live in, to sit in, to be aware of, because our transformation requires our intention. An intention to transform, to change form, and to transcend and include, yes, but to transcend this egoic structure, these ideas about ourselves that are just not true. And to be those imaginal selves within the society, within our culture. Because that's what it takes for us. So just imagine that for our society, our culture, that we have all, as a culture, as humanity even, as a culture, taken on these ideas that are simply not true. They do not align with truth. Our prejudices, our judgments of each other our ideas about what's good and bad and right and wrong. Our first step is to question that. And to be the imaginal cells that are holding the light, being the light. And as those imaginal cells within the chrysalis come together and coalesce and they begin to create this butterfly, so must you and I be those imaginal cells that come together in community, in connection and community to support each other, to be that which is creating and co-creating the new earth. And we do that. Just look at the caterpillar, like following that path, following that inner guidance, only partaking of that which feeds it, which supports it in this transformational process. What are we feeding ourselves? What are we taking in? Is it feeding our spiritual nature? Is it feeding the Christ within us? Is it truly encouraging our evolution? Or is it simply continuing to feed our egoic structure that separates us from that energy and from each other? So our opportunity is to be called up, but also not to call each other out. That's easy. It's easy to call somebody else out, isn't it? Well, you should be, or you should be, or you should be. No, that's not helpful. We get to call ourselves out. How am I showing up first? And then, if you can show up perfectly, then you can tell us all how to do it. Right? Once you get it, and if you have already got it, I will sit down right now and have you come up here because I need to learn from you how to do it. We're all in that process, aren't we? And so I'm calling myself up because you have called me up. And I'm calling myself out because I want to transform. And I want to join you in this transformational process. I want to offer you a couple of things here from the book that, and again, it's 10 practices that we can engage in. Well, I'm not going to share that with you, but what I will share with you, he talks about in the book, one of the things that we can do is radical self-awareness. Radical self-awareness. And that can be as simple. And this has been my practice this week because I've sort of been, I've been moving and I've been unpacking and I've kind of been busy and rushing and trying to do everything. And so my practice this week has been just to slow down, to be present, to pay attention. How often are we in such a hurry to get from here to there that we're just going, no? We're just moving. We're just trying to get from here to there. Again, I don't know if you experience that or not. I know I do. Well, what if we take a breath and just be aware of every step, every breath, every thought, every experience? Can it be that simple? Can we just practice that? Another practice I like to engage in, which I haven't done in a while, but it's really helpful. I'm going to invite you to do it right now. want you to put your hand in front of your face. And maybe soften your gaze a bit and just look at your hand. And try to let go of your idea of hand. And just observe with wonder and curiosity. Look at the lines, look at the fingertips, look at the skin, and just be present with your hand. Invite yourself to see the energy, the life that is pulsing through your hand. You might even just let go of the word hand and just be present with life. Marvel and wonder. And just see that as this energy of life that's in form. So take a breath. Just breathe into that. Be present with yourself, with your breath, with your thought, with your body, with every moment, as much as you can. And the second thing he offers in the book is deep self-acceptance. And he's not talking about trying to feel better about our egoic structure. He's just talking about accepting every moment, accepting every experience, without having to try to define it, resist it, change it in any way. Just be aware of what you're feeling. Emotion, the feeling in your body. To accept it and not resist it and not judge it. And imagine how that can transform the energy. You know, I've had that experience. I think I may have shared one with you, but if you're in traffic and you're sitting there and you're just going, oh, I'm nervous, I'm fear, I'm not going to get there. No. Can you even just stop and breathe into the feeling of that? Just be with the energy. Bring presence to the energy of your feeling. And I promise you, what you will find is the more you're willing to breathe into it, the more you're willing to be with it, that energy begins to transform. Have you experienced that? And sooner or later, you're at peace. Do you believe it? Try it. Just try it. Just be present with that. Because what I see is for all of us is our willingness to transform. But it has to occur within us, with our own consciousness and our own presence. It's easy to say, I see a new world. I behold a new earth. I behold a new heaven. I behold a new earth. But that must occur here first. Because that is how we are going to bring that to bear in reality, in this dimension. Yes? So what are we willing to do? Are we really willing to own this idea of transformation? People use that word a lot. Especially churches use it a lot in their mission and vision statements. And I wonder how serious they are about it. But I'm going to claim with us and for us that we're serious about it. We're serious about transformation. We're committed to transformation for ourselves, for each other, and for the world. Because I see each one of you spreading your wings awakening, flying, soaring, just like this little butterfly I'm wearing on my lapel today. So, I hold that vision with you and for you. I thank you for your attention this morning. You bless me with your presence, and you bless each other with your presence, your intention, and your attention. Blessings to you all.